The entire contents of this podcast and website are based upon the opinions of Tammy Garcia and her guests, unless otherwise noted. The information on this podcast is not intended to replace a one-on-one relationship with a qualified healthcare professional and is not intended as medical advice. It is intended as a sharing of knowledge and information from the research and experience of Tammy Garcia and her guests. This is the Naturally Inspired Podcast, coming to you from our 1890 homestead in Johnstown, Colorado. I'm Tammy, and I want to thank you for joining us. Let's get started and help people feel good so they can do what they love for longer. Today on the Naturally Inspired Podcast, we're talking about 7 simple shifts that you can make to live a healthier life. I thought this would be a great time to kind of sit down with you and just kind of go over some of the things we've learned so far. We are now on episode 13, so we've talked to many professionals and there's been tons of information that we have given. So I like to stop every once in a while and just kind of tidy it up, I guess, and recap what we've covered. So some important things that I have put together just to put things in action, I guess. So how do we start making some shifts in our lifestyle if, these things are making sense to us and we want to incorporate them, but it could be overwhelming, and how do I get started? So that's what we're going to do today. We're just going to sit down and kind of talk about some small shifts that we can make to live a healthier life. So with that, I want to get started. And the first shift that I think is pretty easy to make is water. Nobody's drinking enough water. We always hear that. So what is enough water? And how much should we be drinking? So the recommended health authorities say that 2 liters or half a gallon of water is what we should be drinking every day. However, there are some things to consider. And if you dive in a little deeper to this topic and start looking at, other professionals, there's a lot of factors in play here, and not everybody can kind of be covered with the same paintbrush and like 8 glasses is good for everybody. That's not really true. When you dive deeper in, you will find that studies say that energy levels and brain function start to suffer when you aren't hydrated. So, and it depends on what you do in a day, because obviously we sweat out water, and the human body is made up of 60% water. So when we're losing water, we need to be putting it back in and then some in order to have optimum health and function at a high level. So one study showed that a fluid loss of 1.36% after exercise actually impaired mood and concentration and increased the frequency of headaches. So that's one thing to consider. If you're a person that gets headaches pretty frequently, you can stop and take a look at the amount of water that you're intaking, because it's maybe not enough, and that could be a simple fix. So that's actually quite a bit. 1%, just 1% of body weight is a fairly significant amount. So that can happen from sweating, going for a run, working out, being in hot weather, all kinds of different things. So you have to consider that. So maybe 8 glasses a day wouldn't be enough for you in the summertime. Or what kind of lifestyle do you live? Are you working out a lot? Then 8 glasses is not going to be enough for that person either. So it's always something to just revisit and make sure that you are getting enough water, because dehydration also, as an athlete, if you're a competitive athlete or an athlete of any kind, it can really negatively affect your physical performance as well, which, that kind of sucks when you put time into training and whatnot, and it can just be, that you're just not getting enough hydration. So you're just not able to perform at the level that you're used to performing at. And that's actually happened to me. So that's why I mentioned that. That has happened to me before, where I've gotten to the race line and, the night before, the couple nights before with traveling and whatnot, just did not get that water intake in. And you can really feel the difference. So you just want to be mindful of how much water you're taking in. Here are some things that water does for you. So why do we need to be drinking a lot of water? Well, so just reading through some articles and from information that I have gotten, there are studies that say that water intake may reduce your weight by increasing your metabolism and reducing your appetite. So if weight loss is an objective to you, definitely, and you've probably heard that before, that water is important. But just 17 ounces of water was shown in this study to temporarily boost your metabolism between 24 and 30% for 90 minutes. So you kind of just taking in 17 ounces of water in this particular study showed that people's metabolism was increased 24 to 30% for 90 minutes. So if you're sipping and taking in water all day, then chances are that's going to help your metabolism pick up and move a little faster. So that's one thing to consider. 68 ounces or 2 liters of water a day increased energy expenditure by 96 calories a day. So just by drinking 68 ounces of water a day, you're burning more calories, 96 more calories per day. So again, if weight loss is your objective, then this is a good thing a simple shift that you can make, and be cognizant of the amount of water you're taking in so that you can achieve your goal. Other health benefits of water, I mean, tons of them, but here's a few. Digestive issues obviously can help with that. It prevents kidney stones and acne. And that's a really big one, especially with our young people. There's plenty of medications on the market to take care of acne nowadays. And there's some side effects to those medications for sure. And something as simple as water. Drinking water on a consistent basis and keeping your skin hydrated can actually improve acne. So that is one thing that I've actually seen in action as well. So it definitely works. A side note too about water. I know, plastic bottles are really convenient, and it's easy to just, be on the go with a plastic bottle. But I did come across an article by a professor of molecular biology from University of Texas in Galveston, actually. And she did a little piece about plastic water bottles. So she was talking about how when plastic water bottles are heated, they actually, like if they're left out in the sun, or if you've left them in your garage, or if at any point it's been heated, it's really not a good idea to drink from plastic bottles that have been heated, because they do break down over time and with heat. So even if something's a water bottle you've been using more than once, you don't want to do that either, because using the water bottle breaks down and it leaches its chemicals into the water. And then of course you're drinking it. So you're drinking chemicals. So one thing to really watch is that you don't ever want to be drinking water bottles that have been heated, left in the car or the garage, because they are toxic. So she did a great little presentation about it, and you can find it online. Her name is Cheryl Watson, and she just really lays it out for you there about the chemical components that come out in the water and that you would be consuming. So don't reuse disposable water bottles, because they can be hazardous, and just commit to a good water bottle that you like. And it's a little bit more motivating to have a good drinking vessel that you like and you don't mind carrying around with you. So invest the money. I didn't want to do it at first. Actually, my daughter was just like dying to get a hydro flask. And I was like, oh, $40, that's ridiculous. I'm not paying $40 for a water bottle. But she broke me down. And then I ended up getting her one. And she loved it. She put her stickers on it and stuff, and she carries it everywhere. And she's drinking more water because of it. And so then I got one for myself. And I am actually using that way more often as well too. So I'm getting more water, she's getting more water. It's worth it. It's a little tiny incentive, but hey, if it changes what you're doing and makes a positive impact and gets you drinking more water, then do it. Definitely. Okay. So number one of the 7 shifts was water. So you want to take a look at how much water you're drinking and maybe make just a shift to get to feeling better with that. Number 2 is movement. Movement. So tons of information on movement. And I know people that are listening to the podcast, some people are currently doing no kind of exercise, and they're really starting from scratch. And then I have other people who are super active, that are into bike racing, running, swimming. They're athletes and they're active all the time. So I want to talk about movement as a whole. But first, I want to talk about the benefits of movement in kind of a different way. I don't think this gets focused on as much as we should focus on it. And there are a ton of benefits to your mental health to being active. And it doesn't mean you have to be a marathon runner or, this triathlete to get the benefits. Any movement can bring you these benefits, especially if you're currently not doing any movement at all. So the reasons why you should exercise is because it is good for your mental health. In fact, it increases brain size. Not only does exercise make the existing brain healthier, it can increase the size of your brain. So that was an interesting little tidbit that I learned. It prevents memory loss by increasing oxygen and blood circulation throughout the body, including the brain. Exercise improves sleep. And wow, I just am hearing so much from my audience about sleep. And I really did, I did not understand the magnitude of this problem because a lot of people are dealing with sleep. And since I started the podcast, I really started to realize that because so many people are reaching out for help with sleep. So if you're not currently active and you're having sleep issues, then this is a perfect opportunity to do your little own science experiment and see if you can get yourself exercising and improving your sleep, because sleep is huge when it comes to health. And especially for weight loss, if you've been struggling with weight loss, sleep impacts that big time. So if you're currently not exercising, I would challenge you to take that on and see if you can improve your sleep just with taking on some exercise. And we're going to talk about how to do that in a little bit later. Exercise also reduces anxiety and depression. Studies have shown, and there's a lot of studies based on this, and I actually just spoke to a mental health professional who's going to be on the podcast next week. Yay! I'm so excited to have her because she's all about holistic mental health and some steps that you can take before, taking on medication, or maybe you've been on medication for a long time and you want to get off, and this is your gal. So she's going to be on next week. But I had a pre-interview with her, and she was talking to me a little bit about stress and anxiety and depression, and that there are studies. In fact, there's quite a few studies out there that say that exercise and movement is more effective than medication when it comes to anxiety and depression. So in this particular study, they measured people who were on medication, and they measured people who were just exercising with placebo. And the results actually came out that the placebo group that had started exercising had better results in decreasing their anxiety and depression. So that's huge. That's really big. And, exercise comes with very little side effects. And, the medications are definitely creating side effects in our bodies. So it's a great place to start. Great place to start. Another benefit of exercising is healthier lymph system. And the lymph system is responsible for moving potentially harmful toxins and bacteria from the body. So that's really big to have a good, healthy lymph system. It's your gutter system is what I like to call it. Everything runs into the lymph and then you're processing it through. So when you are sedentary, You don't experience the benefits of moving that lymph and helping your body work through toxins. So even a rebounder is an excellent way to work your lymph system. One of those little trampolines that we used to have in the 80s in everybody's basement. Those really work. If you get on there for a few minutes every day and you just bounce up and down, you're working your lymph system and giving your body that extra push to get rid of toxins and push things and potentially harmful things that are in your body, just helping it work through. So that's another great benefit. Healthier bones, also exercise helps greatly with that. And the higher the impact of exercise, the greater the bone growth, actually. So think of it this way: you don't have to be lifting weights to get better bone growth. It's actually when the muscles and push and pull against the bones that it helps preserve your bone mass and also helps build it. So any activity in which you work against force, such as walking, dancing, taking stairs, it all helps to build bone mass. And bone building effects of exercise kind of go throughout your lifespan. So it helps you. What you did when you were younger helps you when you're older, so to speak. So, losing bone mass is never a good thing. I think we've all heard the story about, Aunt so-and-so falling down the stairs and breaking a hip and then just kind of taking a downward spiral. So this is something I'm paying a lot more attention to now that I'm in my 40s, just taking care of my body and making sure I'm strong, because it's such a huge part of being able to stay active and also to be independent when you get older. I know it's not something we think about frequently when we're in our 20s and 30s, because we're like, oh, it's way down the road. But it is really something you're going to think about when you're in your 70s and 80s, when you're needing help to get everywhere. So this whole podcast is about proactive, right? We're just being proactive here. We're trying to make ourselves aware so that in the future we can, do what we love for longer. That's what it is. So building bone mass is definitely a part of optimum health, especially as you get into your later years. And after your 30s, your bone mass starts to decline. So that's when it becomes really important to try to preserve it with exercise and, keep what you have and then build what you can at that point. So how do you start incorporating movement? Now, this is a big one. I get asked this all the time. How did you start running? How can I do that? You just really have to start. So if you're starting from zero, the best thing to do is just start walking every day. Dedicate that time in your calendar where you're going to set aside to go for a walk, to get outside, or even walk on a treadmill if your weather's bad. But promise yourself that you're going to get going every day and schedule it in so that that time is set aside. If you're already active, then step it up. Some great ways to kind of stay immersed in your active lifestyle is to become, a friendly competitor, is what I like to call it. You're a friendly competitor. You're going out to races and you're not maybe expecting to win the race, but just having that date where you're signed up for the race or having that activity that you're working towards just keeps you plugged in and keeps you, moving forward. And eventually you start meeting people who are doing the same activities as you, and it becomes a community for you, which is what you need. You need a community to plug into. So whether that be racing or martial arts, I'm actually just blown away by martial arts, especially mixed martial arts. My son is involved in mixed martial arts, and his gym, it is amazing. It is, there's kids in there from a young, 6, 7 years old, and there is older people in there up into their 70s and 80s. And particularly, they've worked wonders with a gentleman who has Parkinson's disease, and he has started their boxing program, and he has come so far. And it's just inspirational that this man at this age would take this on and with this ailment and get these kinds of results. So like if somebody like that can get started in martial arts at 70 who's battling Parkinson's, then certainly a healthy able-bodied person really shouldn't feel bad or feel like, oh, I can't do this. You absolutely can do this. You can start whatever activity that you're interested in at any point in your life. It's never too late to start an activity. Martial arts, dancing, um, cycling, swimming, um, you name it, weightlifting. I am just floored by the competitors I see in the weightlifting world, that they're in their 50s and 60s, some natural, and they're just, I'm blown away by what they're able to achieve. And it's just consistent action over time. And they started late and they're still getting results and they're having a great time in their community. So if you think about things that you used to do, um, that you enjoyed when you were younger and you've somehow gotten into a sedentary lifestyle, try to revisit some of those things or try something new. Kickboxing classes are so much fun. Boxing classes are fun. All of those kinds of things. Just don't rule anything out. Just be open to trying things so that you can find your tribe, so to speak, who are the people that you're going to fit in with and that you're going to enjoy doing that activity, and move forward and get moving. Uh, it helps so much when you're within a community. It holds you accountable, and it makes you focus on what you can do, and each week when you get better at something, it's going to just build up and you're just going to start looking forward to those activities. So again, I'm talking to people who you know are maybe just getting started, getting moving, but also to people who are already active and and are looking for a little extra motivation. I would say, work into an event. That is such a great way to motivate yourself. How do you stay motivated? I get this question all the time too. I've been running for a long time and fitness is a passion of mine. But, people ask, how do you stay motivated? Like, I wish I had that motivation, or I wish I had so and so's motivation, or I wish I could be like that. And you got to set a plan for yourself. Only you know what kind of thoughts you're thinking that make you unmotivated. So you got to think about that. Why am I not getting out? Why am I not doing this? I want the results of being active, but yet I'm not doing that. So you got to ask yourself why you're not doing that. And then you got to put a plan in place, a plan that says, oh, okay, every time I have this thought, I'm going to counteract it with something else. So, for example, mine has kind of changed over the years because your brain gets smart to the way you're trying to manipulate things, and it won't work as effectively. But when I first started running, I used to my motivation was Runner's World magazine. Of course, online wasn't really a thing back then when I started, but I used my Runner's World magazine as motivation to continue running. In the back of Runner's World magazine, they always feature a runner, and it's usually somebody who has overcome some circumstances to be a runner or has an amazing story. There's always a story in Runner's World about somebody like that. So I used to rip it out of the back of the Runner's World magazine and I'd put it on my fridge. And this one month, there was a gal in there who had lost her leg. So she had gone through this huge journey of this accident, and she just wanted to get back to running. And so it told her whole story about the rehab that she went through. And then it had this beautiful picture of her running, oceanside with her prosthetic. So I ripped that out of that Runner's World magazine and I put it right up on my fridge, and it stayed there for 10 plus years. Because every time I felt like, oh, I don't really want to go, I thought of that lady. and how she worked through that huge process just to be able to get back out on the road with a prosthetic leg. So when you put things in perspective like that, it just makes you realize how fortunate you are to be able to move. And when you dwell on being grateful, then your whole mindset changes, and you're now grateful to go out for that run. You're grateful that you can get on that bike. You're grateful that you can swim. And that is, that's the down and dirty of staying motivated. I mean some of the stories that I tell myself when I'm running races, you know it's a mind game. It's really a mind game, because it can be quite challenging and painful to be at mile 20 or mile 22, and your brain is searching for motivation. So you have to have that kind of memory bank of motivation. Another favorite motivator of mine is Terry Fox. Terry Fox was a young man who ran for cancer across Canada when I was in kindergarten, and he lost his life. Well, first he lost his leg, and then he ran across Canada with on one leg. He ran a marathon a day and got up and did it the next day after on one leg. And after reading his biography and just growing up around the Terry Fox culture and his race for cancer, it embedded that in me. And so whenever I feel like I don't really feel like going, or I'm really grinding it out in a race, I think of him running down the highway on one leg, and that helps me. It resets my mental thoughts, and I become grateful that I have two legs, and it completely pushes me through the race. So I challenge you to find your motivators right now. So like I was saying, I used to go to Runner's World. I knew a lot about Terry Fox's story. So those were kind of two of my plans that I would go to when I'm not feeling motivated. But, recently I've become a lot more active on Instagram with the podcast and whatnot. And I have met some amazing people through Instagram. And one in particular that I follow, I'm going to give him a huge shout out right now, is Incredible MMA. So I follow Incredible MMA on Instagram, and I would recommend following them for inspiration, because they post the most amazing posts. They are all about adaptive martial arts. So they work with young people who have had injuries or who deal with challenges, to get them to be able to practice martial arts in an adaptive way. And yesterday I saw a guy with no arm. So he had one arm, the other arm was gone, and he completely climbed a rope up to the ceiling with one arm. I can't do that with two arms and two legs. So I watched that, and then I immediately thought, wow, if that guy can do that, I don't even know how he lost his arm. But he lost his arm, and he's now focused on this adaptive training. If he can do that, then certainly I can go run my 4 or 5 miles today and lift some weights, right? So, but you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan to look at things like that every day. So you feed your mind, so you can be grateful for what you have, and you can be motivated to achieve that goal of getting moving. So that's what I have to say about movement. Next one. Let's see here. We're going to move to, one of my favorite topics, nutrition. So number 3. So number 1 was water. Number 2, movement. Number 3 is taking supplements and nutrition. This is my favorite one, and you'll learn why here in a few minutes. So you are not getting what you need from your food anymore. And I know there's a lot of people online that say, oh, you get all what you need from your food, blah, blah, blah. That is just not true. Our soil is depleted. And if you don't believe me, you can go to scientificamerican.com. You can go to Berkeley University EDU. You can Google soil depletion and read all about it. because our food is not as nutrient rich as it used to be. It is a number of factors in play here on why our soil is deficient, but nonetheless, without getting into all the science of it, it's depleted. And so the food that we are consuming has some of these items have 50% less nutrients than they used to have, like in the 50s. So you got to supplement. You have to supplement. You are not getting what you need from your food. And there's another kind of, it's kind of like a layers here when it comes to nutrition. And the other kind of component that we have going on is glyphosate. So glyphosate is the chemical they spray on lots of different crops to keep out bugs, to make a better crop. And it's found in everything. And one of our practitioners that we're on, I think 3 weeks ago, was talking about how glyphosate is now even being found in human tissue. So we're ingesting it. It's in our hair, it's in our nails, and it's in our tissue. And it's not healthy. It's very toxic. And so not only that, but it does affect the gut health as well. It permeates the gut and can cause a symptom, or a condition, rather. That's what I mean. A condition that is called leaky gut. And that leads to inflammation and digestive and lots of issues. So, and we talked about gut health the other day too. So you can listen to that if you want to learn more about gut health with Nicole Ekman, I believe was the guest that we talked to about that. So we kind of have this depletion of soil, and then we have this toxicity too with glyphosate. So two kind of things going on there in our food supply that don't help us absorb nutrients and keep us where we need to be. So our bodies get depleted over time as well. So as we age, we're naturally getting depleted, but what we're eating is not replacing that depletion. And then we find ourselves in a little bit of dis-ease in our body. So I have a personal story about this. So when I was 40, just about to turn 40, I found myself in pretty much a world of hurt. I ran a marathon in Denver, the rock and roll, and I just felt awful afterwards. And my training had not been great for that race. I just felt like really, I don't know how I'm going to do in this race. So I did have some warning prior to this, but certainly not what I was prepared for. I wasn't prepared for what happened after the race. I could not recover from that race. I was exhausted, tired. I had achy muscles. I had twitching muscles all over my body. I was experiencing 35 different symptoms. And I went to my allopathic doctor, and I told him my list of symptoms, and he immediately thought, it was muscular related. So did a bunch of testing and whatnot, and nothing was found. Couldn't find anything wrong, which I was grateful for. Happy that I was found healthy. However, with not being able to find anything under his testing, he offered me Xanax. So Xanax to cure my achy muscles and my 35 other symptoms, because he really didn't have anything else to offer me. When the tests come back, there's nothing wrong. They don't really have anywhere to go. So then in my experience, they kind of started attacking your mental health. And so that's when I was offered Xanax, and I politely declined and left the office that day. But I felt like I didn't have anywhere to go after that, because I didn't want to take the Xanax, but I definitely didn't want to keep feeling the way I was feeling. I was feeling horrible. So that's when I started branching out to what else was available to me. And I fortunately found lots of information and lots of people that were willing to help and talk with me about my symptoms and try to narrow it down and figure out what was going on. So long story short, I got on a plan of supplements. I started taking minerals, and within a pretty short period of time, I saw way decreased twitching in my muscles. The achiness started to disappear. And what it came down to was that I was extremely deficient in minerals. I had exhausted my my uh, my sources. I had run out. I had had two kids. I had nursed them both. I had been running races for years. I ran every day. I worked out all the time. And there was a period of time there where I lived off goldfish crackers because I was raising two toddlers. So nutrition at that period of my life wasn't high on the priority. I had other things going on. So I wasn't taking care of myself. And finally the gas tank ran out. But fortunately, once I got started on a plan, I started to see results right away, little things, little improvements. And then, it didn't happen overnight. It took time to build up. And then eventually I was able to get rid of all of the twitching muscles. There was no achiness. Most of my symptoms completely disappeared over time. So when someone says, I don't really need to take vitamins, I don't need supplements, I give it a valid effort to try to say, hey, you might want to rethink that. But because I don't wish that on anybody. That was really not a pleasant experience. And so you're worth it. You're worth it to put that money into supplements and keep yourself stocked up on your micronutrients and stuff, so you don't experience those kinds of symptoms. And that's usually what people say. Oh, I don't want to spend the money. The kids need this or this, or I shouldn't be spending money on that. Well, to that I say, like, I just paid $700 to get a wart removed off of my kid's hand that I had tried, everything to try to take care of before, and nothing worked. So I had to go into the doctor to get it. And we pay monthly premiums here in the United States, but it doesn't cover anything. Being small business owners and whatnot, our premium are big and our deductible's bigger, so it doesn't cover anything. And it's just $700 for 3 freezings of a wart. That's what we paid, $700 to get that wart removed. And I can't imagine, what it would cost with some of these ailments that, that you can be proactive with trying to keep yourself healthy. So too expensive for supplements is a cop out. You're not taking care of yourself. And if you don't listen to your body now, you will be forced to listen to it later. So you have to be able to see the value in preventative care. And that's what we talk about here on the Naturally Inspired podcast. We're here to discuss, exchange ideas, and tackle our health issues and stop future health issues by being proactive with the things that we do in our lifestyle, so we can stay ahead of the problems. That's what we want to do. So the other thing is what are your symptoms right now? I know that was one thing that if I could go back with my own experience, if I could go back and change, I would have listened to my body, because I didn't feel good when I was training for that marathon. And it had been years before that I had symptoms like hair falling out, unexplained hair falling out, dry skin. What else did I have? I had maybe even a little heart palpitations from time to time that I had never, had any experience with earlier in my life, but just a little flutter from time to time. I was like, oh, that was weird. What was that? Those were all warning signs to me that I was getting low and I was getting depleted. But, when they don't take you down, you don't stop and think, I got to take care of this right now. It's when it takes you down and all of a sudden you can't function, or you're not functioning to the level that you're used to. That's when you start to take notice. And what I'm saying here today is what are those symptoms now? What have you had a heart flutter? Are you having twitching muscles? Is your hair falling out? You know, what are some symptoms that you're having that have or maybe you have stomach issues, maybe you have digestive problems that you've been putting up with for years. These are all warning signs. Your body is talking to you. It's trying to tell you something's up. And what we want to do is fix the something's up before something's really up, right? And you're not able to function. So that's what I would urge you to do today to get healthier, is just take an inventory of maybe some of these symptoms that have been hanging around for a long time and explore what you can do about them. Explore what you can do about them, because, for me, magnesium has been huge, huge for me. It definitely helped with so many of my symptoms, but that's just one mineral, that's just one thing. And there's so many of them that we don't even know about. And there's cofactors, and without getting into all the complications, it's complicated how these things work. But you definitely want to get on a good system that you're dedicated to, and that you're going to resolve some of these issues with. These health issues, it's a bit like being a detective when you're trying to sort out some of these symptoms. So it's always good to take stock of it, put it in a journal so that you write down all your symptoms. I know when the reason why I know I had 35 symptoms is because that's what I did. I wrote down every last thing that was bothering me. And, week by week, I was able to check those things off of the list. That's how incredible it was. So I would urge you don't believe in supplements, I would open your mind to it and give it a try. Okay, so that's nutrition and supplementation, number 3. So number 4, this is a quick one, but so powerful. I know, let's see. Cleaning products. This was something I came wise to a few years ago, but I think we all know it because spray some Lysol and you want to choke yourself out. So it can be good, right? And that's one thing. I think it's a simple shift that you can do, especially if you get a line that works great. Switch out your cleaning products, and this is why: because there's harmful chemicals in them. Chemicals that have been known to cause disease. There's a chemical called PERC, P-E-R-C, and that's toxic. It's in a lot of different cleaning solutions. Formaldehyde, also not good. Ammonia, sodium hydroxide, chlorine. And these types of things are found in aerosol sprays, air fresheners, dry cleaning chemicals. Just switch them out for natural cleaners, because, I love that. I love this analogy. It's like someone said a long time ago to me that your skin is your biggest organ, because, I think we don't think of it like that it's an organ, and that it is permeable, right? Because we're not leaking blood, right? So, but it stuff comes out when we sweat, but also we absorb things when we're working with them. So you clean the bathtub or whatever, if you get in there with the Comet and stuff, that's going right into your system. It's being absorbed through your skin. And those chemicals are toxic, and especially over time. Now, I don't want to freak everybody out and say, oh my God, I just used Comet yesterday. It's these are little shifts, but when we're living in such a industrialized world with lots of toxins in it, we have to cut out what we can. That's kind of my philosophy, is just I'm going to do what I can, so that, and there's no guarantees, but having done what I can makes me feel better and know that I tried everything I could to stay healthy. So getting rid of your toxic cleaning products, easy, right? You just get rid of them. You get them out and you get into a natural line, something that's not exposing you to toxins. Easy shift. And that's number 4. So we are on to number 5, which is cook at home. Number 5 is cook at home. Here are some reasons why. Research shows people that cook at home have healthier, happier kids. Yep, true statement from this, according to this study. Um, there's a decrease of chance of teens using drugs and alcohol when meals are provided at home. There's reduced consumption of sugar and processed foods, of course, because when you eat out, that food, it needs to taste good for you to be able to come back. And they do that with addictive foods like sugar and other you know uh, MSG and things like that flavor the food, that make you crave it. So it reduces consumption of sugar and processed foods by eating at home. And people have a longer life. This is a real study. People who cook at home live longer. So we can't control what we eat, and what we can't control what we're getting when we eat out. Um, and a restaurant is a business, and they want to provide you a tasty meal that will keep you coming back at the lowest cost to them, right? Which is, that's a business model. They want to give you the best product they can, but for the lowest cost, right? And so they do things like they don't use 100% olive oil, right? They're cutting it with vegetable oil. Or they don't use the healthiest ingredients because it's not cost effective to them. So you never know what you're getting when you go out to eat. And I'm not saying don't ever go out to eat again, but what I am saying is keep it to a minimum, because you just don't know what you're eating, and that could be affecting your health drastically. um, Something to keep in mind, right, is that restaurants operate at a 6.5% profitability. That's it. That's it. It's a 6.5% profitability. And that's if they're doing good. So they are always looking for ways to cut cost. And one of those ways is to cut food costs, right? To buy a cheaper product that may not be as clean a food item that you would eat at home. And if you're not going to tell the difference in the taste because they cover it up with sugar or salt or other flavorings, then they're going to do it because it's better for business. So keep that in mind when you're going out to eat. Again, I'm not saying don't ever go out to eat. I'm just saying that, keep it to a minimum, because you really don't know what you're getting when you're going in to eat at a restaurant. Okay, number six. Number six is, oh yeah, switch your makeup. Switch your makeup to a natural mineral based makeup and your personal hygiene products. Switch to natural ones. This is also an easy fix. Um, I put it separate because cleaning products are for the house, and it's easier to make a decision, oh, this is going to affect the kids if I don't use natural cleaning products. So I'll go ahead and change the natural cleaning products, no problem. But what good does that do you if you're putting toxins on your face every day because you're using chemical laced makeup and hygiene products. We had Dr. Colleen Holland on the podcast a few weeks back, and she talked quite a bit about phthalates and xenodisruptors. Xenodisruptors, you can read all about xenodisruptors at the government website of www.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. And I'll put that in the show notes so that you guys can get familiar with that. It's a helpful website, and you can search all kinds of things on there. But there's some great information on there on xenodisruptors. So what that is actually something that disrupts your normal hormone balance. And they're found in a lot of things. Water bottles is one of them as well. Actually, plastic water bottles, especially when they're heated up, that can be a huge xenodisruptor. Also, anything that's got phthalates in it, any perfumes, air fresheners, those kinds of things, they can all be disrupting your natural hormone balance. So if you can switch to something like essential oils for perfume, if you can switch out your makeup to mineral makeup, there's some great lines out there. I use one that I love, so I'm happy to tell you that if you want to direct message me, and I'll hook you up with that. Um, but it's definitely something that you can easily make the switch to. It's a simple shift, and it'll prove your health over time for sure. One thing to consider too about the xeno um, disruptors is we talked about estrogen dominance with Dr. Holland as well. And, that gets us down a whole nother pathway with disrupting hormones cause infertility. You can have issues with your cycle. You can, just overall have a feeling of not being well. And so definitely you want to minimize your exposure to those. Um, and it would be one thing, again, I want to make the point that, not any one of these things is like, oh, I have to do this. And if I don't do this, I'm not trying to instill fear in you here. But what I am trying to demonstrate here is all these little things built up over time are toxic to you, and they do impact your health. So if you don't want to change all seven, don't change all seven. But if you can pick one or two things that you think you can shift, then you're doing yourself a favor and you're taking a step towards optimum health. Um, Soy is so prevalent in our food supply. That's why I want to talk a little bit about soy with the disruptors, because we're seeing a lot of hormone imbalance and issues. And part of it is birth control, like we talked about the other day with Dr. Holland, but also part of it is just the toxicity of these disruptors in our world, and we have to consider that. But also in our food source, soy is in everything almost. I mean, you'll find soy in places you never thought soy existed in if you start reading labels. And so if, especially our young girls, if our young girls are, eating a standard diet, not really paying attention to labels, they're getting soy in their food. They're drinking from plastic water bottles, so they're getting, who don't know if it's heated up or whatever, so they're getting xeno disruptors there. They're using perfumes that have phthalates that are also xeno disruptors. They're using makeup products that have chemicals in them too, it's all adding up, is my point here, right? It's stacking on top of each other, and that's when you start to notice the effect on the body, is when these things start stacking up. And it's not till you really start feeling bad that you think, okay, I need to make some changes here. So keep that in mind. And that's kind of one thing that I definitely want to expose here, is that these are things that pile up, and we're not really aware until we're in trouble. So make a change with your makeup. And number 7, which is our last one, probably my favorite one, because this made a huge impact on my life, is dedicate time to self-development. So um, some people, they have their spirituality, and that's their personal development time, which is wonderful. But if you don't have that, and you're kind of like searching for something that, makes you feel fulfilled, or maybe, you just need a little something extra, I would strongly suggest that you dive into some self-development. And there's some wonderful authors out there. And, not every author's for everybody. I know my best friend, I recommended one of my favorite authors, and she goes, oh my God, I cannot sit through that. She did not connect to that guy at all. And so don't stop there. Just off the top of my head, Tony Robbins has been a huge influence on me. Dr. Wayne Dyer has been a huge influence on me. Not so much with my best friend, but anyway, he was for me. And let's see, so many different authors and people that you can reach out to and just dive into that and just dedicate a little bit of time to that every single day, even if you start with 10 minutes a day, or maybe you have a book on your bedside table that you read every night before you go to sleep for 10 minutes. I think that's pretty much how I started, to be honest, is I had gone to the library and picked out a bunch of books, and I always have some stack of some sort on my bedside table, and I would just read a little bit of it every day, and then it kind of built up, and then I was started to crave it, and I wanted to um, read it every night, and I looked forward to it, and then I started listening to Audible books, and then before you know it, like, I do self development every single day for a minimum of 30 minutes. So I listen to a podcast, I read a book, I listen to a talk. TED Talks are great for that too. That's a great way. But if you're doing this every single day, it really adds up and it has a profound effect on your attitude. It gives you new tools for your toolbox. Um, just last week, we had on Denise Chenault and we talked about Byron Katie's work, which is Do the Work. And if you haven't listened to that podcast, I would highly recommend plugging into that. I got some great feedback off of that and how people are implementing those 4 questions that we talked about in that podcast right away. And do yourself a favor and, um, just plug into that kind of thing because it will keep you on the path of achieving what you want to achieve and getting optimum health. So dedicated time every day, and it will create momentum and keep you in the right mindset of, getting to where you want to be. Now, this is just kind of a short snippet, 7 steps. So we started with water and we went into, so with water, just to recap, you want to make sure that you're getting enough. And 68 ounces, I think, is a great place to start with water intake. And pay attention to the signs of your body. Again, headache is a good sign, exhaustion. It's a good place to start with those things. Sometimes we just overlook the simple stuff and we don't realize that that could be the culprit when it comes to symptoms and whatnot. So water was number 1. Number 2 was movement. And we talked about just getting involved and getting out. And the impact that movement can have on you as far as healthier bones, metabolism, losing weight, your healthier lymph system, and then the powerful piece of the mental health issue can help with anxiety and depression. So that was movement. And then number 3, we talked about taking supplements so that you can improve your nutrition and fill in all those little gaps that may be causing you some symptoms that you've had for years. Maybe there's some micro deficiencies there. So, taking supplements and getting the nutrition you need. Number 4 was change out your cleaning products because you want to get those toxins out of your house and reduce your exposure to toxins. So change out your cleaning products was number 4. Number 5 was cook at home. Cook at home, and there's some wonderful benefits to cooking at home, which kind of shocked me actually when I read that article. But what a great thing to to think about. Oh, I don't really feel like cooking tonight or whatever. Well, people that cook at home have happier, healthier kids. They decreases the teens' use of alcohol and drugs. It reduces your sugar and processed food consumption, and you live a longer life. What could be better than that? Another thing I wanted to add there is that, moms usually take on a lot of the pressure of cooking the meals. And I would say to that is make it a family affair, try to make it an activity. Sometimes we just throw on, the TV and we'll watch a movie while we're chopping vegetables or getting things together. But I find if we make it more of a group activity that I'm a little happier doing it. Don't feel like I'm doing all the work. And nothing brings me greater joy to know that I'm giving my kids the nutrition that they need and that they're not getting a bunch of excess stuff that they don't need that's harming them. So think about that. For number 5 is cook at home. Number 6 was switch your makeup and your personal hygiene products. Go natural with your personal hygiene products and your makeup. It will reduce your risk of, hormone imbalance. It'll get rid of those disruptors and, just make you feel better overall. So switch out your makeup and your hygiene products. Number 7, which is my favorite, dedicate time to self-development. And that means self-care, really is what that means. You're taking care of your mind, your mindset, and you're keeping yourself immersed in the process of making changes in your life. So number 7 was dedicate time to self-development. And I just want to say that this is, just this little snippet of how to kind of make some natural changes in your life to improve optimum health. But that I will be, and I'm really excited about this, I'm going to be launching a video course in the new year that will be a lot more in depth about how you can make changes in your lifestyle to go more natural and to achieve optimum health. So thank you so much for tuning into the Naturally Inspired podcast. I am so glad that everyone is getting stuff out of it and that you are racing towards optimum health. Have a great night, and thanks for listening to the Naturally Inspired podcast. If the Naturally Inspired movement makes sense to you, let's do this together and transform the medical model and help people take charge of their health. Learn more about how you can join the Naturally Inspired movement by going to naturallyinspiredadvocate.com or call me at 970-475-4862.